UFC Fight Night Vegas 100, Magny versus Prates just took place, and I'm going to go through the entire card, starting with the early prelims, ending with the main event, giving my reaction and breakdown to every single fight on the card, starting with the early prelim opener of Melissa Dixon versus Claudia Segula. Now, this fight had a lot of finishes. None of them were too crazy until the end, but this did have a lot of finishes. Melissa Dixon gets it done by second round ground and pound TKO. Who said it was going to happen? I said it was going to happen. Claudia Segula is very upset with her loss, but it was expected. She has been pandered to her entire career by fighting non-competitive opponents and is not good herself. Melissa Dixon eventually gets to fight to the ground in the second round. They're up against the cage for quite a bit of the fight as well. Let's not forget that. And then just rains down ground and pound on Claudia Segula to get the TKO win. Melissa Dixon gets it done. Good job for her. Was an expected win. Let's move on. Tresean Gore versus Antonio Tricoli. I said that Tresean Gore would get this one done by finish in the first round. I said maybe late in the first round. I think I said TKO. But I also mentioned that Tresean Gore's got a really nasty guillotine he could go to here if Tricoli's not liking the way things are looking on the feet. And that's what happened. He wasn't liking the way things are looking on the feet. Antonio Tricoli is an awful fighter. He should not ever have been in the UFC anyway. He's just a big dude. And that can be enough sometimes at middleweight if you're just maxed out on like frame stats for the division. But he's terrible. Has beat no one good ever in his career. And they only signed him because he goes out of Mackenzie Dern. Tresean Gore gets it done by guillotine in the first round. Picked him to win and he got it done. We move on. Cody Stamann versus Damon Blackshear. Damon Blackshear wins. Another expected one. Listen, the card was good, and I was keeping an eye out before I went live at a lot of these finishes. But a lot of them were just, like, very expected outcomes of the fights. Like, Cody Stamann and his 5'1" self is not going to be winning any fights in the bantamweight division in 2024. So I don't... Like, they went back and forth on the feet. Stamann was trying to work the body, and it's just like, dude, you have no power. You have no frame. You have no presence in the cage. You ain't got Michael Chandler's knockout power to be his equivalent build in the bantamweight division for what he is at lightweight. So he just loses to Damon Blackshear. Escapes a submission attempt early on. Gets out of it. I think it was like a one-armed guillotine that Damon Blackshear was going for. And eventually gives up the rear naked choke while scrambling out of that position. So... good job by Damon Blackshear. A very expected win from him. We move on. Matthew Semelsberger versus Charles Radtke. Now, this wasn't as expected. First of all, Radtke didn't say it again. Now, before we even get into the fight, I think Charles Radtke needs to be aware you've made a fan base out of saying it. Why are we no longer saying it? Okay, I know you could lose your job in the UFC and be fined. Who cares, dude? This is why we watch you fight. This is why we want wins out of you. When will he say it again? That's the question that we've all got on our minds when it comes to Charles Radtke. However, he beats Matthew Semelsberger, first round TKO. This is actually kind of shocking to me. I know Radtke's got power and he has had some good TKO wins previously in his career. But Semelsberger went like toe-to-toe with Chaos Williams. You know what I mean? He's fought some powerful punches in that welterweight division, and they have not shattered his chin in the slightest. They have not wobbled him or dropped him bad. I know Uros Medic put him away, and maybe, you know, because that was his last fight. Well, the Preston Parsons fight happened, but, you know, maybe he's losing it a bit. I don't know. But, yeah, Radtke hits hard, I guess. Radtke hits very hard and put a good shot right on Matthew Semelsberger around the guard. Wobbled him, stumbled him, and then followed up and put him away. First round TKO win for Charles Radtke. Doesn't get much cleaner than that. I wonder who got the performance bonuses because there were so many mismatches on the prelims. I do wonder. So Prates got one. Masur Abdul Malik got one. All right. And Radtke. Okay, that makes sense. And Damon Blackshear. They gave out Damon Blackshear for beating Stamann at this point. Okay. Fair play. Getting the younger guys paid that aren't on as good of contracts. That makes sense. But yeah, Radtke gets it done. TKO in the first round. Calls out the UFC for never giving him any bonuses. So there you go. He'll be very happy. That's why I wanted to check, because I know he had a bit of a whinge and a meltdown on the mic afterwards about never getting any post-fight bonuses. So first round KO. No one really does that to Semelsberger, who's now probably lost his job in the UFC. Hate to see it. We move on. Elizeu Zaleski dos Santos versus Zachary Scroggin. I, of course, went with Elizeu Zaleski dos Santos. There is not... He was originally supposed to fight Dalby, but I've been saying he beats this replacement. There is not a worse guy to draw a fight against than on short notice in your UFC debut than Elizeu Zaleski dos Santos. The guy is very underrated, you know. I'm going to talk about the win, like he caught the guy over the top with a right hand, then he shelled up on the ground, and Elizeu eventually rained down enough ground and pound shots to put him away. A little bit uneventful, but it was a good looking TKO. Then the capoeira he was doing was really cool after that. The guy's been in the UFC since 2015. He's got some solid wins under his belt. You know, he's got Omari Akhmedov. That's a solid win. Nakamura. He beat Lyman Good. He beat Max Griffin. He's beat Luigi Vendramini. Sean Strickland by TKO. Finished him. Lost to Li Jingliang, actually. That's a good win from Li Jingliang to finish Elizeu Zaleski dos Santos. Beat Milander. Beat Kunchenko. Lost to Salikov. That's tough. But he's had some... You know, he beat Benoit Saint Denis. I know it was short notice in his debut, but nearly beat Renat Fakretinov. That's solid. Beat on Abubakar Nurmagomedov. Beat him. Yeah, he's all right. I don't mind Elizeu Zaleski dos Santos. He always makes it close. And he's putting together like a good career for himself here. Even though he's never going to be a top contender, it's good to see that he's just getting in there and getting paid in his old age. You know, it's like when RDA gets a win, but like a Walmart version. We move on. Karolina Kowalkiewicz versus Denise Gomes was always going to happen this way. Wasn't the most entertaining of fights. This stopped the finishing spree on the card. Who saw that coming? No. Stopped the finishing spree on the card. Denise Gomes just has more power than Karolina Kowalkiewicz. That was the situation in this fight, really. Kowalkiewicz would land some shots, but Denise Gomes would land a shot that would back Kowalkiewicz up for a second and have her stumbled over herself, and she's starting to look like she's about to cry as she's doing her walkout, and she's going to cry when they're doing the announcements, and then when she's getting hit in the cage, she's going like she's going to cry again. It's really You know, when women... I know... You know when people say they don't like watching women fight? I mean, I get it from like a skill perspective, but there's nothing about the fact that they're women that makes me think like, oh God, they shouldn't be doing this. It's mainly because they're so trash and garbage. But with Kowalkiewicz, I kind of get that point, because it does make you think like, oh, they shouldn't be letting this happen. Maybe it's because, you know, Denise Gomes ain't fooling no one. Dude. You know what I mean? But, I don't know. It just looked like who's letting this young boy beat up on this old woman? Like, it just felt weird, you know? But good job to Denise Gomes. She gets the job done. We move on. Masur Abdul Malik versus Dusko Todorovic. Masur Abdul Malik made a John Jones is gay comment in the post-fight interview. So this guy's now my new favorite fighter. But I was trashing Dusko Todorovic in this fight. Listen, Masur Abdul Malik looked good, did what he needed to do to get the win. TKO, ground and pound. Took him a while because of all the leg locking that was going on, and that's what I want to talk about, mainly when it comes down to this. But he did hurt Dusko with a knee beforehand. But I want to mention this, man. I'm sick of fighters rolling around for leg locks on the ground. They never work. Maybe now and then there'll be a fighter who gets a leg lock submission, goes for a heel hook, gets it, gets a knee bar on someone, who knows. We rarely ever see it, man. And I think it's got to start being something where in gyms, the coach is just being like, right, 10 laps, you know what I mean? Or whatever they're going to do, like this. That some kind of punishment anytime you go to bottom position in MMA sparring for a leg lock. Just, what are you doing? Like, I know he was rocked, but there were moments where he could have been like, okay, and now I'll use this to get on top. And he wouldn't take those opportunities. Or he'd have a leg lock and Masur would lose balance for a bit and it'd be like, there you go, Dusko, now's your chance to get back up. And he's still working on this heel hook. Leg locks just don't typically work in MMA these days. People know what they are. They're more... Turns out they're easier to avoid if people know what they are. This ain't the old days of the UFC anymore. And it just leaves you there to get hit in the face at middleweight. Like, listen, at bantamweight, you want to roll around for a leg, try it out. Flyweight, same thing. Little scramble, heavy division. See what you want from it. Still try and get top position, though. In the heavier weight classes, round 1, you got a huge guy on top of you. Get the fuck off the ground, you nerd, or you're going to get finished. And that's what happened. Masur Abdul Malik gets a win and makes a John Jones is gay comment in a post-fight interview. So, this guy's my new favourite fighter, dude. Trains with Sean Strickland. That's probably where that influences came from. It's all good. We move on. Luana Pinheiro versus Gillian Robertson. I picked Gillian Robertson to win. To be fair to Luana Pinheiro, I think if we wanted to get real technical about damage-based scoring, there is kind of an argument for her to win the first and second round. But I said this in the build-up to the fight when it comes to, I think, Gillian Robertson is going to win by decision. I said in the build-up, like, if they're going to go to a close fight, they're going to just give it to the girl that gets a takedown at the end of the round. Now, I don't really remember the... Where's my fucking thing gone? Okay, there we go. I don't really remember the... I mean, Gillian Robertson allegedly outlanded her in the first. I don't see a 10-8 scorecard in that round, in that fight at any point, by the way. I get it, maybe round 3 for Gillian Robertson. I didn't think it was a 10-8 round. That's pushing it a little bit, in my opinion. Round 2 I gave to Luana Pinheiro. Robertson didn't really get anything going with the takedowns early enough, that is. I liked that Robertson shot a bunch of takedowns, though. Even though they were failing, she shot 17 takedowns, had a dominant third round, had a good first round, I guess, kept it competitive, and then sort of got a takedown at the end, which is like, and she gets it off of that. So, yeah, good job, Gillian Robertson. Gets a decision win. I will say this. There might not be a fighter in the UFC with less effective stand-up than Gillian Robertson. I don't see how they can inflict damage, those punches that I was seeing from her. Or the kicks even. Or even though they were kind of taking Luana Pinheiro off balance, the low kicks are so slow. The punches are so slow. She's got grappling and she's big for the division. But, yeah. Nothing too great to watch. But at one point, she was 12-6 elbowing the axe wound of Luana Pinheiro, let's say, just to keep it monetized on YouTube. She was just 12-6 elbowing the wizard's sleeve of Luana Pinheiro, you know. She saw Predator without a mask and went for it, type shit, you know. So, yeah, nasty elbows from Gillian Robertson. We move on. Gaston Bolanos versus Cortavious Romious. Man, I should have trusted in my Bolanos pick, but I ended up switching to Cortavious Romious because I was like, somebody's going to beat Cortavious Romious because he's not that good at all, even though he had a ton of hype and people were getting behind him on the come-up. Like, I didn't even think he looked good on the Contender Series. But I was like, okay, but Bolanos is so fucking slow. Surely Cortavious Romious is going to get him. He's faster. He can get to the back. He can get takedowns. And he did, but Gaston Bolanos had good takedown defense, good scrambles. He stays patient when you've got his back, knowing that he's on top position. Eventually he'll end up on top and actually get some damage going. And that was the story of the fight, right? Round 1, Bolanos having a great round, kicking at range. Very slowly. Very, very slowly kicking at range against Cortavious Romious. Just these body kicks. They're landing, but I'm like, dude, how is Cortavious not catching him going for these? And he starts landing some good shots. I think he even cuts open Cortavious Romious in the first round at one point after stuffing a takedown, ending up on top. And at the end of the round, Cortavious does wobble him badly and has him all over the place. So I don't know. I gave that round to Cortavious Romious. Maybe. Just because of that moment at the end. But it could still go Bolanos. We haven't seen the replay yet of... I wish the UFC would do that. If there's a shot that we don't know if it was a knockdown or not, that should be priority when it comes to what you're showing us during the corner moments. You know what I mean? But, yeah, Gaston Bolanos, second round, had a much better round. Got kind of controlled a lot early in the second. Had his back taken, body triangles in. It's not looking good for him. But then at the end of it, because Romious just did no damage with the grappling and had no submission attempts, really. When Bolanos got on top, he just started landing some elbows, punches, battering Romious up against the cage. It looked like Romious was going to be finished in the third round when the second round ended. In fact, it looked like Bolanos was going to finish him at the end of the second because he was kneeing him to the body against the cage, and Romious is exhausted from failing takedowns and giving it his all to control Bolanos. And then Bolanos just hits a reversal and starts landing some pretty effective shots. So, yeah, Bolanos wins the second, and then Bolanos wins the third round. But the round one is the contention round. I didn't give a 10-8, though. A judge gave a 10-8 here, if I'm not mistaken. Let me go back and check. Yeah, Tony Weeks gave a 10-8 round. And every judge gave all rounds to Bolanos. I don't mind that, by the way. I guess he wasn't hurt that badly, as bad as I thought he was. Yeah, 10-8 round is fucking crazy to me. Really crazy, if you look back at the fight. We move on. Gerald Meerschaert versus Reinder de Ridder. Dude. Craziness. Chaos. Everything we've come to expect from a Gerald Meerschaert versus a prospect fight. Is he going to be fraud checked? No, he's not. But Meerschaert's second health bar's appeared. Oh, now they're going into deep waters. Round 3's begun. Meerschaert's activated total power. A third health bar has appeared now on Meerschaert, and Ridder's got to get through that one. It was a tough one for Ridder. Now, first of all, I said this at the start, going into the fight. I was going to pick de Ridder to win. I didn't think it'd be this bad looking. I'll be honest. His stand-up looked fucking atrocious. And I know people say, I had a lot of people in my chat saying, well, DDP looks the same. Listen. There's doing things goofy, but effectively. And then there's doing things goofy and just looking retarded while you do it. That's Reinder de Ridder compared to DDP. DDP does things goofy, but like you'll see him throw a lead head kick up there and it'll be like, hang on, that was a good one. And there's a really good low kick that he landed. That's a good jab he just landed. That's a good counter hook that he just went for there. You know what I mean? DDP will be goofy, but then he'll lock in when it's time. You know what I mean? And even the goofy stuff works for him because of his style. Reinder de Ridder's goofy was just ineffective shit, basically. Where he would just turn away from Meerschaert. And Meerschaert's all of a sudden looking like some force to be reckoned with on the feet, which is crazy. Even though he did drop Bruno Silva, which Pereira couldn't do. Remember, this is Meerschaert we're talking about. So Meerschaert is dominating the first round. Not dominating, but he's clearly winning the first round against Reinder de Ridder. Ridder's looking terrible on the feet. And I'm thinking he's about to get fraud checked by Meerschaert because, I mean, if he makes it past round 2, that's one thing. But if he makes it into round 3 with GM3, we know what goes down in those rounds. You know what I mean? That's the danger round. And then de Ridder, fair play to him, cracks Meerschaert at the end of the round, wobbles him, and goes for him. So he's got finishing instinct. Elbow lands off the break. Follow-up shots. Ends up throwing like a second left hook. After missing the first 2, and then it like catches Meerschaert on the chin. Meerschaert's done at the end of round 1. The second health bar appears. This is the problem. Once you drop Meerschaert, he gets a second level of power. Once you go to the third round with him, he gets a second level of power again. A third level of power. That's why they call him GM3. People know this. Okay? So, de Ridder hurts him at the end of round 1, thinks it's over, then is like, why do I still hear boss music as it's playing while he's in the corner? Round 2, he's on bottom position a lot in round 2. Stand up not looking too good, landing a bit better with kicks and stuff like that, but yeah, on bottom a lot in round 2. Meerschaert's doing well in the control. De Ridder at one point fails a dash choke on Meerschaert, and I shit you not. The only way I can explain the move that he tried to essentially hit like a throw on Meerschaert with the whizzer. I don't know what throw he was going for, but he had the whizzer and he tried to step through and sort of use that to get a throw on Gerald Meerschaert. And what he ended up doing is going to sweep with his right foot and then just throwing himself on the ground at one point in round 2. Really... Someone said it looked like, in my chat, people were saying like he looked like he went for like a pop shove it or something. Like imagine there was an invisible skateboard underneath de Ridder's feet. He was like going for some kind of trick and then just face planted the canvas. It was really a messy fight, guys. It was a really chaotic, messy fight. But that's what Meerschaert brings, the chaos, the storm. And only the best can get past him. People forget, man. Meerschaert's fraud checked a lot of fighters. But then round 3, Meerschaert's got his second health bar from being knocked down. The boss music is really ramping up into its next phase because they're in the third round, and he comes out with heat. You know what I mean? In round 3. Swinging, landing on de Ridder, but then de Ridder does a little better with his grappling. Establishes better control over Meerschaert. Eventually getting it done with a arm triangle in the third round, which is the Meerschaert move, if not for the guillotine. And Meerschaert tried his guillotine of doom. Meerschaert tried his guillotine of doom. And it was in. The guillotine of doom was in from Gerald Meerschaert. And de Ridder escaped it. And then Meerschaert even tried his armbar of hell that he tried in round 2. And de Ridder escaped a few submission attempts. So that has got to be mentioned. There's a good grappling here. But he got the arm triangle. And then he said, after I was done screaming, he just Meerschaerted Meerschaert. He says on the mic, yeah, man, I just Meerschaerted the Meerschaert. Which is what Meerschaert does. So although he looked Down syndrome in the fight, you got to look past that and think, he just beat Meerschaert in round 3 of a fight. This is monumental stuff. This is the round that Gerald Meerschaert dropped and choked out the great Bruno Silva in. People forget, man. You know? This is his round. You know? Listen, if Python makes it to round 3 with Meerschaert, he's cooked. You don't need the Hermansson fraud check. It would have happened there. This was probably the best Meerschaert we've seen. I hope he continues going. We move on. Great win from Reinder de Ridder, though. Give him a ranked opponent next. There's no time for this unranked area. Straight into rankings. Hermansson, maybe. We move on. Neil Magny versus Carlos Prates. Now, I was worried for a bit that Prates was about to be fraud checked. You know you were as well. When you saw Magny holding onto that single leg, you were like, oh, please, God, have some takedown defense here at the high level. You know, we've seen him stuff takedowns before, but it's different when someone's a little bit of a crafty vet. He's a crafty vet, you know? And Magny got sent to Peaches and Creamville, guys. I don't know. Carlos Prates, though, not too many low kicks. I mean, he was southpaw against Magny's orthodox. So, yeah, he didn't really have access to that low kick. But, you know, he chopped it shin to shin. Did that a few times. Was missing a lot of shots early because Magny was, like, going for the single leg takedown and trying to grind him up against the cage. And it was like, oh, God, please have takedown defense here, Prates. Then at one point in the middle of the first round, he drops Magny with a right hook counter and just catches him, cuffs him with it. And Magny's hurt bad and down. Prates definitely has some crazy power in his hands. Catches him with the right hook. Magny goes down, but then we end up where he fails a finish. And now they're up against the cage again. And I was like, fuck, man, this guy smokes cigarettes on fight week. He's a cigarette smoker. You know what I mean? Like, I'm worried that, oh, God, Magny's going to keep failing these takedowns, but Prates is going to be like, proper, like, cigarette lung breathing. But he looked good. Stayed patient, stayed calm. Eventually closed down on Neil Magny. Landed some good shots. Was following him around, tracing him down. And then, I mean, what did he land on him? He landed a left hand, a left hook, right behind the ear of Neil Magny. I thought it landed behind the head, and that's why Magny went out cold. But no, he literally, you can see the replay. People are actually like, oh, Magny took a dive. What actually landed from Prates that would warrant that much of a reaction? He barely caught him with, like, his big knuckles right on the side of the ear. On the back, behind the ear, side of the head. Like, Magny turtled up as he came in, and he, like, barely cuffed him with it. It was like Elves Brenner versus Ishbablenko, or whatever his name is. Let me check back. Elves Brenner versus Kurushny or something? Kruchuski. If you look at that fight, not as clear and obvious, but that's the type of shot that landed. It was just more smothered. So really good KO from Carlos Prates. He called out JDM in Australia because apparently he has a child in Australia that he'd like to go see. Crazy. Degenerate father activities. All good though. I don't know if he's getting JDM next. I feel like JDM's looking for a title elimination bout. Let's just keep it real. But he also called out Jeff Neal, which is a great matchup. Or MVP, which is another great matchup. There's a lot of fun fights for Carlos Prates. But let's not get ahead of ourselves, dude. Okay? With a JDM call out. Am I scared that you may beat him? Yes. But JDM's looking for different types of fights. He needs something that's a top 5 win. You know what I mean? See you later, guys. Thank you for tuning in. But if they can't find an opponent for JDM and they want JDM in Australia, there's a guy willing to fight him in Australia, and his name's Carlos Prates. So that'd be a sick matchup. See you later, guys. Thank you for tuning in. Toodle pip and goodbye. I did good on predictions overall on the card. I only got 2 wrong. And that's about that. It was all right. It's kind of an uneventful card. There were finishes, but they weren't. They were expected finishes, you know? Which is kind of lame. See you later. Goodbye.